When we say lockout, that means locking out something. Naturally, tagging means applying a tag. In your company, lockout and tagout can be two of the most important things you can do for safety, particularly when you're using machines and equipment. Generally, the safety purpose of lockout tagout is to prevent machinery or equipment from unexpected startup or release of hazardous energy while the machinery or equipment's being serviced or maintained. Keep in mind that lockout tagout safety is more than just turning off the electricity. It means controlling the release of hazardous energy as well. The Lockout Tagout program does not include cord and plug connected equipment, such as portable power tools. However, it's important that when you use cord and plug connected equipment, before you clean, repair, or maintain that particular type of equipment, you must remove the electrical plug from the electrical energy source and keep the plug in your sight and under your control. This is to prevent someone from plugging it into the electrical power while you're working on the equipment. Hot tap operations that involve transmission and distribution systems for gas, steam, water, or petroleum products, where work must be performed under pressurized systems, is also not subject to lockout or tagout. Hot tap operations is a special operation, and other additional measures and procedures are used to protect the worker. Hazardous energy can include any source of electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, or other energy. Springs, clutches, gravity, hoses, steam lines, and other potentially hazardous energy sources must be locked out and tagged out before servicing or maintaining equipment or machinery. Keep in mind that one machine may have several sources of energy, each requiring locking out and tagging. As we go through the program, you'll see how this works. It's called lockout tagout, but it can also be called control of hazardous energy because in reality, when you lock out tagout, your job is to control all hazardous energy of that particular machine or equipment. There are two categories of employees identified in the control of hazardous energy, so let's quickly identify and explain them. An affected employee is an employee who performs the duties of his or her job in an area in which the energy control procedure is implemented and servicing or maintenance operations are performed. If you work in an area with equipment or machinery, you're an affected employee. An authorized employee is an employee who performs servicing or maintenance on machines and equipment. Lockout or tagout is used by these employees for their self-protection. Let's go one step further and state that an affected employee may also be an authorized employee. When the affected employee's duties also involve performing maintenance or service on a machine or equipment and, consequently, is responsible for implementing the energy control procedure. In other words, an affected employee normally does not service the equipment that he or she operates. However, if servicing or maintaining the equipment becomes part of the job, then the affected employee also becomes an authorized employee and must use lockout-tagout procedures. The amount of training for maintenance or authorized personnel should include the recognition of applicable hazardous energy sources. Details about the type and magnitude of the hazardous energy sources present in the workplace, and the methods and means necessary to isolate and control those energy sources, such as the elements of the energy control procedures. Affected employees, such as machine operators or users, and all other employees, need only be able to recognize when the control procedure is being implemented and understand the purpose of the procedure and the importance of not attempting to start up or use the equipment that has been locked or tagged out. Keep in mind that retraining must be provided whenever there is a change in job assignments, a change in machines, equipment, or process that present a new hazard, or a change in energy control procedures. If the inspection process reveals deficiencies or deviations from procedures, additional training may be required. Let's look at the basics of a hazardous energy control program. Your company has a written lockout-tagout program that includes 1. Documented energy control procedures. In other words, a written plan that explains what equipment is required to be locked, tagged out, and the specific procedures to ensure that all energy sources are controlled. 2. Next, an employee training program to ensure that affected and authorized personnel fully understand their responsibilities. 3, and last but certainly not least, is an inspection program. An inspection program to ensure the procedures are understood by everyone An inspection program to make sure the procedures are adequate to safeguard all personnel from unexpected energization, startup, or release of stored energy. This inspection program should include all machines and equipment to make sure all potentially hazardous energy sources are identified and their lockout-tagout procedures are sufficient to protect anyone working or servicing the equipment or machine. Let's discuss briefly servicing and/or maintenance operations. When performing a servicing activity such as lubricating, cleaning, or unjamming equipment, and this servicing activity takes place during production, the employee may be subjected to hazards that are not encountered as part of the production operation. Workers engaged in these operations are covered by lockout-tagout when any of the following occurs. 1. The employee must either remove or bypass machine guards or other safety devices. 2. The employee is required to place any part of his or her body in contact with the point of operation of the machine or equipment. 3. The employee is required to place any part of his or her body into a danger zone associated with the machine operating cycle. In the above situations, the equipment must be de-energized and locks or tags must be applied to the energy isolation devices. There are some servicing operations, such as troubleshooting or making adjustments, that must be performed with the power on. Employers must provide effective protection when employees perform such operations. When power is not required, however, lockout-tagout is required. Employees performing minor tool changes and adjustments and/or other minor servicing activities during normal production operations that are routine, repetitive, and integral to the use of the equipment are not covered by lockout-tagout, provided the work is performed using alternative measures that provide effective protection. At a minimum, the in-your-company lockout-tagout program includes but is not limited to the following elements. 1. A statement on how the procedure will be used. 2. The procedural steps needed to shut down, isolate, block, and secure machines or equipment. 3. The steps designating the safe placement, removal, and transfer of lockout-tagout devices, and who has the responsibility for them. 4. The specific requirements for testing machines or equipment to determine and verify the effectiveness of locks, tags, and other energy control measures. 5. The employer or an authorized employee must notify affected employees before lockout or tagout devices are applied and after they are removed from the machine or equipment. The procedure must include the following steps. A. Preparing for shutdown. B. Shutting down the machine or equipment. C. Isolating the machine or equipment from the energy source or sources. D. Applying the lockout or tagout device or devices to the energy isolating device or devices. E. Safely releasing all potentially hazardous stored or residual energy. F. Verifying the isolation of the machine or equipment prior to the start of servicing or maintenance work. Before lockout or tagout devices are removed and energy is restored to the machines or equipment, certain steps must be taken to re-energize equipment after servicing is completed, including 1. Ensuring that machines or equipment components are operationally intact. 2. Ensuring that all employees are safely positioned or removed from equipment. 3. Ensuring that lockout or tagout devices are removed from each energy isolating device by the employee who applied the device. Generally, there are two types of energy isolating devices: those capable of being locked out and those that are not. When the energy isolating device cannot be locked out, the employer must use tagout. When using tagout, the employer must comply with all tagout related provisions, and in addition to the normal training required for all employees, additional training must be provided that explains the following limitations of tags. 1. Tags are essentially warning devices affixed to energy isolating devices and do not provide the physical restraint of a lock. 2. When a tag is attached to an isolating means, it is not to be removed except by the person who applied it, and is never to be bypassed, ignored, or otherwise defeated. 3. Tags must be legible and understandable by all employees. 4. Tags may evoke a false sense of security. They are only one part of an overall energy control program. 5. Tags must be securely attached to the energy isolating devices so they cannot be detached accidentally during use. Basically, you should use locks and tags if the energy isolating devices are lockable for full employee protection. There are many older machines and equipment that simply cannot be locked out. However, all newly purchased equipment must be lockable. What kind of lockouts and tagouts are required? Basically, the lockout device provides protection by holding the energy isolating device in the safe position, thus preventing the machine or equipment from becoming energized. The tagout device does so by identifying the energy isolating device as a source of potential danger, and it's indicated that the energy isolating device and the equipment being controlled may not be operated until the tagout device is removed. Whichever devices are used, they must be singularly identified and must be the only devices used for controlling hazardous energy and must meet the following requirements. Durable. Lockout and tagout devices must withstand the environment to which they are exposed for the maximum duration of the expected exposure. Tagout devices must be constructed and printed so they do not deteriorate or become illegible, especially when used in corrosive or wet environments. Standardized. Both lockout and tagout devices must be standardized according to either color, shape, or size. Tagout devices must also be standardized according to print and format. Substantial. Lockout and tagout devices must be substantial enough to minimize early or accidental removal. Locks must be substantial to prevent removal except by excessive force or special tools such as bolt cutter or metal cutting tools. Tag means of attachment must be non-reusable, attachable by hand, self-locking, and non-releasable, with a minimum unlocking strength of no less than 50 pounds. In other words, you can't use string to attach a tag. It should be a self-locking plastic strip that may have to be cut to remove. Keep in mind that the attaching item must also withstand all environmental and conditions as the tag. Identifiable. Locks and tags must clearly identify the employee who applies them. Tags also must warn against hazardous conditions if the machine or equipment is energized, and must include a legend such as the following: do not start, do not open, do not close, do not energize, do not operate, or similar words. Before lockout or tagout devices are removed and energy is restored to the machine or equipment, the authorized employee or employees must take the following actions or observe the following procedures. Inspect the work area to ensure that non-essential items have been removed and that machine or equipment components are intact and capable of operating properly. Check the area around the machine or equipment to ensure that all employees have been safely positioned or removed. Make sure that locks or tags are removed only by those employees who attach them. In some instances, there may be procedures whereby a supervisor may authorize the removal of the lock or tag. Notify affected employees after removing locks or tags and before starting equipment or machines. There are additional safety requirements for special situations. The temporary removal of locks and tags and the re-energization of the machine or equipment only when necessary under special conditions, such as when power is needed for the testing or positioning of machines, equipment, or components. The re-energization must be conducted in accordance with the sequence of steps listed here. 1. Clear the machines or equipment of tools and materials. 2. Remove employees from the machines or equipment area. 3. Remove the lockout or tagout devices. 4. De-energize all systems. Isolate the machine or equipment from the energy source and reapply lockout or tagout devices as specified. When contractor personnel are involved, the on-site employer and the outside employer must inform each other of their respective lockout or tagout procedures. Each employer must ensure that all employees understand and comply with all restrictions and/or prohibitions of the other employer's energy control program. When servicing and/or maintenance is performed by more than one person, they must utilize a procedure that affords the employees a level of protection equivalent to that provided by the implementation of a personal lockout or tagout device. This could be a multi-lock device, where everyone must remove their locks before the machine or equipment can be re-energized. Quite often, when different shifts work on the same equipment, the person who puts the lock on must take the lock off, and the oncoming shift person then puts his or her lock on the equipment. This exchange of shifts requires two different locks and not just exchanging keys to one lock. Certainly, this program has touched on a wide range of issues. However, lockout tagout, or the control of hazardous energy sources, is extremely important, and you should make sure you fully understand your responsibilities. If you have a question or don't understand something covered in this program, be sure and ask your supervisor. Safety is much too important not to understand. Thank you.